The asteroid palace floated silently in the void, glowing faintly under the light of nearby stars. Its jagged towers and sharp spires reflected centuries of fear and power. No being, human or dragon, approached it lightly. Inside, the hallways echoed with the sound of heavy claws striking stone, the hiss of wings, and the low rumble of a voice that made even the bravest shiver. Zarek, the Dragon King, sat upon his massive obsidian throne, his scales black as night and eyes glowing like molten gold. The sheer weight of his presence made the air itself seem heavier. Every dragon in the palace trembled in his presence. Fail him and death was certain. Every human who served here lived with the knowledge that a single mistake could end their life. No one dared defy him. No one except Jaren, a small stable boy who carried neither the size nor the strength of dragons, but whose heart refused to bow to fear. Jaren moved quietly through the stables, his hands wrapped in leather gloves worn thin from work. The stables were enormous, filled with dragons of every size and shape, from the towering stormwings to the small, fiery-scaled hatchlings. Most dragons ignored him, keeping their distance. Some hissed, curling their wings in warning, others flicked their tails with irritation. But he worked on, feeding, cleaning, and tending to them. He had learned to move carefully, to anticipate their moods, and to speak softly in tones that calmed even the most anxious of beasts. On this day, a young dragon named Flare, barely half-grown, had been left in his care. The hatchling was untrained, wild-eyed, and jittery, pacing the stable and snapping at anyone who came near. Jaren knelt beside him, speaking softly. "Easy, Flare, just breathe. I'm not going to hurt you." The hatchling growled and bared its teeth, smoke curling from its nostrils. "Stay back," it hissed in a voice that sounded almost human. "I know," Jaren said, staying calm. "I know you're scared. But we can do this together. Just one step at a time." He reached slowly, offering a small bundle of food. The dragon sniffed, then snapped at it, missing the mark. Jaren flinched but held steady. He had learned not to show fear. Showing fear was the same as surrender. Above them in the grand hall, the Dragon King's roar echoed suddenly, shaking the walls. Flare froze, whimpering, and Jaren's stomach tightened. The sound was not just loud, it carried authority, judgment, and threat. "A mistake will be punished." Zarek's voice thundered. "Any dragon who fails me is dead. Any human who fails in their duties is dead. Let none doubt my justice." The hatchling shrank back, eyes wide, trembling. Jaren placed a hand on its snout, speaking softly. "It's okay, Flare. We won't fail, not today." But deep inside, Jaren knew that if Flare panicked again, death might be the result. The Dragon King's punishments were legendary. Even minor errors had ended lives. He had seen it happen to dragons and humans alike. One careless step, one misplaced scale, one hesitation, and it was over. Jaren took a deep breath and decided he would do something no one dared. He would speak directly to the Dragon King. He left Flare safely in a small enclosure, making sure the hatchling could not escape or harm anyone. Then he climbed the steps to the grand hall. The hall was enormous, carved from black stone and lined with glowing crystals. Dragons crouched in corners and along ledges, watching silently. Zarek's massive head turned as the boy entered. The throne's shadows made him look even larger, wings folded behind him like mountains of darkness. "You dare enter my hall, human?" the Dragon King's voice boomed. "Do you know what happens to those who fail me?" Jaren's legs shook, but he did not bow. He met Zarek's molten gaze steadily. "I know, Your Majesty," he said quietly. "But I had to speak. The young dragon, he didn't mean to make a mistake. If you execute him, you'll lose more than a dragon. You'll lose trust and mercy." The hall was silent. The Dragon King's golden eyes narrowed, smoke curling from his nostrils. No human had ever spoken to him like this. Most ran, bowed, or begged for forgiveness. Few had survived. None had dared to question him. "Mercy?" Zarek's voice was sharp, filled with disbelief. "Humans are weak. You are small. Your words are meaningless. And yet, your heart beats with courage I have not seen in centuries. Speak, human. Why should I spare him?" Jaren took a deep breath, stepping closer. "Because he is learning. Because mistakes are part of life. You once taught dragons to be strong but not cruel. This is what you wanted, right? Strength guided by wisdom, not fear." Zarek's eyes flared and his wings twitched. He leaned forward on the throne, claws scraping the stone. "You dare lecture me?" he growled. "A human? A boy? And you call this wisdom?" Jaren shook his head, keeping his voice calm. "I don't lecture, Your Majesty. I only ask, can we try another way? To teach instead of destroy? The boy dragon, he can learn. He can be strong just like you want. If you kill him now, you will take away a chance, not just from him but from everyone who follows you. The Dragon King stared, breathing heavily, smoke curling from his nostrils. No human had ever spoken with such courage and calm. Even the dragons in the hall tilted their heads, sensing something unusual in this boy. Zarek's voice softened just slightly. And what makes you think a human can guide a dragon? You are weak, frail, not one of my kind. I may be small, Jaren said, but strength is not only in size. It is in heart, in patience, in the will to try again. If you let me help him, I will not fail. A silence filled the hall, thick and tense. Zarek's eyes narrowed, studying the boy. He could smell the courage, the fear, the honesty. He could sense the boy's heartbeat through the vibrations of the floor. This human, he was different. Finally, after a long pause, Zarek leaned back on his throne, wings folding slowly. I will allow it, he said, voice low and rumbling. You have one day to prove yourself, and him. Fail and you will both die. Jaren nodded, bowing slightly. His heart raced, but relief flooded him. Thank you, Your Majesty. I won't fail. As he left the hall, he returned to Flare, who looked at him with wide eyes. The hatchling trembled but did not hiss. Jaren knelt, offering his hand again. It's us against the challenge, he whispered. We can do this. We just have to try. Outside, the stars shimmered against the blackness of space, but inside the palace, a small human boy had done what no one else had dared. He had stood before the Dragon King and spoken for mercy. And for the first time in centuries, the fearsome Dragon King's throne room was filled not only with tension and judgment but also with curiosity. Jaren took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day ahead. He knew it would not be easy. But he had courage, heart, and determination, qualities that not even the mightiest dragons could ignore. And as he reached for Flare, he knew that this was only the beginning of a story that could change the Dragon King, the dragons, and even the humans who served them forever. Jaren returned to the stables, his heart still pounding from the encounter with the Dragon King. Flare, the young hatchling, peeked from his enclosure, eyes wide and nervous. The little dragon had sensed the tension in the hall, the way the Dragon King's anger and curiosity had filled every corner. Jaren knelt carefully, offering the hatchling a small piece of cooked meat. It's okay, Flare. We made it back. They won't hurt us, not yet. Flare hissed softly, smoke curling from his nostrils, but he didn't move away. Jaren smiled slightly, knowing that trust had to be earned one small step at a time. He ran his gloved hands over the dragon's small scales, whispering soothing words. You're safe now. Just stay calm and we'll get through this together. He thought about what had happened in the hall. Speaking to the Dragon King had been terrifying. Every word could have been his last. But he had found courage he didn't know he had. Standing there, staring up at the molten gold eyes of the Dragon King, he had felt something shift inside him. Fear was still there, but it no longer controlled him. Courage had taken its place. The Dragon King, meanwhile, had retreated to his throne room, pacing slowly. Zarek's massive claws scraped the stone floor as he muttered to himself. A human, speaking of mercy, daring to stand, unheard of. Why does this one strike a chord within me? His voice rumbled like distant thunder. He had ruled the dragons for centuries, executing any who failed, but this boy, he was different. Back in the stables, Jaren began preparing for the Dragon King's test. The boy dragon had to be trained in a single day, a task the king intended to be impossible. Jaren knew he had to approach it differently. He couldn't use fear, force, or aggression. Those were tools of the past. He had to rely on patience, understanding, and courage, qualities he had barely begun to trust in himself. Okay, Flare, Jaren whispered, we'll start small. One step at a time. He led the hatchling to the center of the training ground, where the other dragons watched from a distance. Their eyes were sharp, filled with curiosity and skepticism. A few of the older dragons snorted in disapproval, not accustomed to seeing a human lead a dragon. Jaren knelt beside Flare. We'll try flying first, he said gently. The hatchling blinked, unsure, then flapped its tiny wings nervously. Jaren stayed calm, holding out a piece of meat as encouragement. Slowly, Flare lifted off the ground, wobbling but staying aloft. A small cheer came from some of the younger dragons, and even a few older ones inclined their heads slightly. Jaren's heart swelled with hope. Good job. That's it, he whispered. You're doing it. He moved beside the hatchling, guiding its flight path carefully. Flare's confidence grew with each attempt, and Jaren's voice remained calm and encouraging. As the day passed, Word spread through the palace that a human boy was training a dragon that the Dragon King had expected to fail. Curiosity and tension spread among the dragons. Some watched from the ledges, whispering to one another. "Can a human really teach him?" one asked. "Impossible," another replied. "Humans are weak and the king punishes weakness." Jaren ignored them. He focused entirely on Flare, speaking softly, keeping the dragon's attention, offering small rewards and gentle guidance. The hatchling responded slowly but surely, learning the movements, obeying commands and following Jaren without fear. By late afternoon, the Dragon King descended from his observation platform. His wings stretched wide, casting shadows across the stables. "Report," Zarek demanded, his voice echoing like rolling thunder. Dragons scattered slightly at the sound, but Jaren stood his ground, Flare following his lead. "He is learning, Your Majesty," Jaren said quietly, his voice steady. "He is responding to guidance, not fear. He can succeed if given the chance." Zarek's eyes narrowed. "Humans are weak," he growled. "You speak of guidance, but what proof do you offer that you can lead where dragons of true strength cannot?" Jaren stepped closer, hands open in a gesture of calm. "Because strength alone is not enough. Courage and patience matter too. Even weak hearts can inspire strength if they are brave enough to try." The Dragon King's massive head tilted, molten gold eyes studying the boy carefully. No one had ever spoken to him with such honesty, such calm courage. Zarek felt a strange stirring in his chest, something he had not experienced in centuries, respect mixed with curiosity. Jaren continued, kneeling slightly beside Flare. "He is learning to trust me. I'm not strong, not in the way you are. But I can guide him. Please, watch him succeed, not fail." A deep rumble rolled from Zarek's throat. He spread his wings, the sound shaking the walls of the stable. "I will watch," he said slowly. "But remember, human, failure is still death." Jaren nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I understand." For hours, Jaren guided Flare through exercises that seemed impossible. Flying in circles, following commands, learning to breathe fire without panicking, all under the watchful gaze of Zarek. The older dragons snorted, skeptical, but slowly they began to notice changes. The hatchling responded to the boy's voice, his wings steadying, his fire controlled. Confidence and trust grew with each command. By evening, Flare executed a perfect flight circle, landing gracefully in front of Jaren. The small human boy panted, exhausted, but his eyes shone with pride. The dragons in the stables murmured in approval, impressed by what they had witnessed. Zarek remained silent, massive head lowered, golden eyes gleaming in the dim light. For the first time he realized something profound. Courage, patience and heart could rival strength and fire. The boy had risked everything, yet he had persisted, and the hatchling had responded. Jaren knelt beside Flare, whispering, we did it together." Flare nuzzled him gently, smoke curling softly from his nostrils as if sharing the boy's pride. Zarek stepped forward, shaking the stone floor with his weight. "Human," he rumbled, "you have shown something I did not expect, bravery, heart and wisdom." His voice trembled slightly, though he did not show it openly. Perhaps there is more to your kind than I believed." Jaren looked up, stunned. The Dragon King, the ruler who executed all who failed, had not roared in anger. He had not demanded death. He had respected him. A warmth filled Jaren's chest, a mixture of relief and cautious hope. "Thank you, Your Majesty," Jaren said softly, bowing his head. "I only wanted to give him a chance, and I wanted to show that even a small human can make a difference." Zarek's eyes softened slightly, though his golden glow still burned with intensity. "Perhaps a small heart can indeed teach lessons that even dragons cannot," he said, turning slowly back toward the observation platform. "We shall see what tomorrow brings." Jaren returned to the stable, exhausted but triumphant. He looked at Flare, now calm and obedient, and whispered, "We did it. We really did it." The hatchling chirped softly, curling around the boy's legs. That night, as the stars shone over the floating palace, Jaren realized that courage was not the absence of fear. It was standing up even when fear pressed down, speaking even when the voice shakes, and holding steady when everything seemed impossible. The Dragon King had tested him, and he had met the challenge. For the first time, a small human boy had faced the fearsome Dragon King and shown courage that could not be measured in size, strength, or firepower. The palace, once a place of terror, now held a quiet ripple of change. And Jaren, tired but unbroken, knew that tomorrow would bring an even greater test, and he was ready. The sun of the distant nebula planet glinted off the jagged towers of Zarek's floating palace as the first light of morning filled the stables. Jaren had barely slept, his mind racing with the knowledge that today would be the Dragon King's ultimate test. Flare, the young hatchling, nuzzled his side, sensing the boy's tension. Jaren stroked the dragon's scales softly. "It's okay, Flare. Today we show him what courage and patience can do. We'll do this together." The test had been simple in words but impossible in expectation. Train the dragon fully in one day. Zarek, the Dragon King, had made it clear that failure would mean death, for both human and hatchling. The enormity of the challenge pressed down on Jaren's small shoulders. Every dragon in the palace watched from ledges and corners, their massive eyes observing, whispering, and judging. Even some of the older dragons, survivors of the Dragon King's previous punishments, tilted their heads, curious if a human could really guide a dragon. Jaren led Flare to the central training ground, a wide arena with scorched stone and claw marks, evidence of countless failures before them. "First we need trust," Jaren whispered, kneeling so his face was level with the hatchlings. Flare hissed softly, uncertain, smoke curling from its nostrils. "I won't hurt you," Jaren said calmly. "I only want to help. You can do this." He held out a small piece of meat, offering it as encouragement. Flare sniffed, then recoiled, unsure. Jaren waited patiently, letting the hatchling make the first move. Trust, he knew, could not be forced. Above them, the Dragon King descended from his observation perch. His enormous wings unfurled, casting shadows over the training ground. "Begin," he rumbled, the air vibrating with his voice. "If this human fails, you both die. Show me strength." Jaren swallowed hard, fear gnawing at his stomach, but he did not step back. "We'll do this together, Flare. One step at a time," he said softly. The boy began the exercises slowly. Instead of shouting commands or forcing the dragon with threats, he spoke gently, guiding Flare's movements with patience. Step by step, Flare lifted its wings, learning to balance and flap without fear. When it faltered, Jaren calmed it, whispering encouragement instead of scolding. The other dragons shifted, murmuring among themselves. "The human, he is not forcing the hatchling," one said. "He is helping it." "Yes," replied another. "We have never seen this. Dragons are strong because of fear. But this is different." Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky, and the young dragon began to respond more confidently. It followed Jaren's commands, breathing fire carefully, landing precisely, and performing simple aerial maneuvers. Jaren's heart swelled with hope. Patience and compassion were working slowly but surely. Zarek observed silently, massive head lowered. His golden eyes glowed like molten fire as he watched the boy and the hatchling. "A human teaching a dragon?" he muttered. "Improbable. Yet, it is working. The boy shows a strength I did not expect." Jaren noticed the change in Flare. The hatchling's tail relaxed, its eyes brightened, and it began chirping softly, a sound of joy and pride. "You're doing it," Jaren whispered. "See? You can do it." The other dragons leaned closer, wings shifting slightly. They had been raised in fear, taught that humans were weak and mistakes deserved punishment. Yet here was a small human boy showing something they had not seen in centuries: compassion, patience, and courage that could teach even a dragon to grow stronger. By afternoon, Flare performed a full flight circle, landing gracefully in front of Jaren. The boy knelt, exhausted, but he smiled proudly. "We did it," he whispered. "You did it, Flare. I just guided you." The Dragon King stepped forward, his massive claws scraping the stone. "Impressive," he rumbled. "But one day cannot change centuries of weakness. What makes you think compassion is enough?" Jaren stood tall, sweat and ash covering his small body. "Because strength without understanding is nothing," he said firmly. "A dragon may be powerful, but if it acts without heart, it cannot lead, it cannot protect. Compassion does not make us weak, it gives us strength that raw power cannot achieve." Zarek's golden eyes narrowed. He had ruled through fear for centuries, and yet the boy's words resonated in a way he had never felt. He watched as Flare nuzzled Jaren, chirping happily. Even the other dragons seemed calmer, as if sensing the bond forming between the boy and the hatchling. "Perhaps there is merit in what you say," Zarek muttered. "Perhaps weakness is not always what it seems." Jaren's heart raced. He had risked everything, and yet the Dragon King's massive presence was quiet now, observing instead of judging. "Flare trusts me because I never tried to hurt him," Jaren said softly. "He learned because he felt safe. That is strength too. Even a small human can guide a dragon if he has heart. The king's massive head tilted, smoke curling from his nostrils. He looked at Jaren and Flare together, the bond between them glowing faintly in the afternoon light. For the first time in centuries, Zarek felt a flicker of something strange: pride, awe, and maybe even hope. The young dragons in the stables began to approach slowly, chirping and nudging each other as if curious about this new method. Even some of the older dragons inclined their heads, sensing that perhaps guidance without force could work. "Do you see, Your Majesty?" Jaren whispered to the hatchling, keeping his voice soft and steady. "We're doing this. We can show them another way." The Dragon King's rumble deepened, almost a growl of thought. Perhaps you are right, human. Perhaps compassion is a form of power." Jaren led Flare through more exercises, each more challenging than the last. He encouraged, guided, and praised, never forcing the hatchling. By the time the sun dipped low, Flare executed a perfect flight maneuver, landing directly in front of Jaren and nudging his hand with a gentle nuzzle. The other dragons in the stables murmured, impressed. Zarek stepped closer, his massive wings folding slowly. "You have done what I did not expect. You have guided a dragon through fear and confusion without force." "That is strength," he rumbled. Jaren knelt beside Flare, his hands resting on the hatchling's scales. "We did it together," he whispered. "I couldn't have done it alone." The Dragon King remained silent, massive eyes fixed on the boy. For centuries he had ruled through fear, punishing mistakes without mercy. Yet here before him, a small human had demonstrated something far greater: courage, patience, and compassion. The king felt a strange stirring within his chest, something he had not experienced in 1,000 years. Jaren looked up at Zarek, heart pounding, and said, "I don't want to fail, Your Majesty. I only want to show that even the smallest heart can make a difference." The Dragon King's golden gaze softened, though he did not speak. For the first time he felt the weight of centuries of tyranny, and he realized that perhaps there was another way. Perhaps mercy could be stronger than fear. Flare chirped happily, curling around Jaren's legs. The boy smiled, exhausted but triumphant. "We're ready," he whispered. "We can face whatever comes next." Zarek rumbled deeply, a low sound that vibrated through the stables. "Perhaps you have taught me something today, human," he said slowly. "Not just the hatchling, but me." Jaren's chest swelled with hope. He had faced the Dragon King's test, guided the dragon with heart, and survived. For the first time he realized that courage was not the absence of fear, it was the will to act despite it. And in that moment, even the fearsome Dragon King began to see that strength could come in unexpected forms. The stables were quiet now, filled with dragons watching with respect and curiosity. And Jaren, small and human, had proven that courage and compassion could match even the mightiest dragon's power. The sun dipped lower behind the jagged spires of the floating palace, casting long shadows across the training ground. Jaren wiped sweat from his brow, his body aching from hours of guiding Flare. The hatchling now moved with a grace and confidence that seemed impossible just a day ago. Every flap of its wings, every controlled breath of fire, was a testament to the boy's courage and patience. Yet despite the small victory, a new tension filled the air. Zarek, the Dragon King, had yet to speak his final judgment. The massive doors of the hall opened with a thunderous groan, and the Dragon King stepped forward. His wings stretched wide, each flap sending a gust of wind that rattled the training arena. His golden eyes, molten and ancient, fixed on Jaren and Flare. Silence fell over the stables. Every dragon and human watched, holding their breath. "You have performed well," Zarek rumbled, his voice low but carrying the weight of centuries. "The hatchling follows your guidance, something I did not expect from a human." Jaren swallowed, his small chest tight. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said softly. "We did it together. Flare did the hard work. I only guided him." The Dragon King's gaze softened slightly, but there was still a shadow of something heavy in his eyes. He stepped closer, towering over the boy and the young dragon. "Centuries. I have ruled with strength and fear. Any mistake was punished. Any failure, destroyed. And yet you, a human, have achieved what I thought impossible. Why does your courage touch me so?" Jaren's voice trembled slightly, but he met Zarek's gaze. "Because courage isn't always about power," he said. "Sometimes it's about heart, patience, and believing in someone who others say will fail. That's real strength even if you can't see it with your eyes." The Dragon King's eyes flickered with something he had long buried, memories of losses, battles, and the cold weight of isolation that came with ruling an empire through fear. He had executed dragons for mistakes smaller than this hatchling's, and yet here he stood, seeing them succeed not by terror but by trust. Slowly Zarek lowered his massive head, and for the first time a tear shimmering like liquid gold slid down his black-scaled cheek. The sound was faint, but some dragons in the arena sensed it and shifted uneasily. Humans gasped softly, knowing that the Dragon King had never shown emotion in their lifetimes. Jaren knelt beside Flare, unsure what to do. He had never seen a dragon cry, especially not Zarek. "Your Majesty?" he whispered softly. Is something wrong?" The Dragon King's deep rumble carried a strange vulnerability. "Something has changed within me, human. Centuries of ruling with fear and I never knew. I never understood what I have missed." His wings folded slightly and he stepped closer. "You have shown me that strength is not only in fire, claws, or scale but in heart, courage, and compassion. And for the first time, I feel something I thought I lost long ago." Jaren reached out, trembling, and rested a small hand on Flare's silver-scaled back. "You're allowed to feel, Your Majesty," he said softly. "Even leaders, even kings, they can have hearts too." The Dragon King's eyes glimmered with tears, and he lowered his massive head closer to the boy. "You have taught me more than I ever imagined," he said in a low rumble. "I have executed dragons and humans alike. I thought that was justice. But now I see, there is a better way. A way to lead without destroying." Flare chirped happily, curling around Jaren's legs. The hatchling had sensed the change too, the warmth, the bond, the new possibility in the air. Other dragons in the stables shifted, murmuring quietly. They had never witnessed a Dragon King cry, much less in response to a human's courage. Jaren's heart pounded. "I only wanted to help him, and show that even the smallest hearts can do big things," he said softly. Zarek's massive claws scraped the stone floor as he knelt slightly, a gesture almost unheard of from a being his size and pride. "You have opened my eyes," he rumbled. "A small human, with patience and courage, has done what no dragon or human under my rule ever could. You have made me see the power of trust, of guidance, of mercy." The stables were silent except for the soft flapping of wings and the hiss of dragons breathing gently. Every being there felt the weight of the moment. The Dragon King, feared for centuries, was crying, humbled, changed. The air felt charged, full of possibility and hope. Jaren knelt, looking up at Zarek. "Your Majesty, you don't have to rule with fear anymore. You can lead with heart just like we did today. Strength and kindness together, that can make dragons stronger than ever." A deep rumble vibrated through the arena, almost a growl of thought. Zarek lowered his head further, smoke curling gently from his nostrils. Perhaps I have been blind," he said. "I have punished weakness, and yet, this small heart has proven that courage and compassion are forms of strength I never recognized. Have made me cry, human. And I am changed." The humans in the stables exchanged glances. They had feared the Dragon King for their entire lives, yet here he was, humbled by a boy's courage. The older dragons tilted their heads, murmuring softly, sensing that something profound was happening. The young dragons chirped, echoing the new energy that filled the air. Jaren reached out slowly to touch Zarek's claw. The Dragon King allowed it, his massive hand dwarfing the boy's yet gentle. "You are brave," Zarek rumbled. "Braver than many dragons and braver than most humans I have seen. I respect you." Jaren's chest swelled. "I didn't do it for respect," he said quietly. "I did it because it was the right thing. Because he deserved a chance. Because even small hearts can change the world." Zarek lowered his head fully, massive eyes softening. A few tears fell onto the stone floor, sizzling slightly as they touched the warm surface. "You have reminded me what it means to be a king, and what it means to be alive." Flare chirped and nudged Jaren's hand, and the boy smiled, exhausted but triumphant. The hatchling had learned to trust, to fly, to obey, not through fear but through guidance. And the Dragon King had learned to feel, to see, and to respect, a transformation centuries in the making. The palace seemed quieter now, filled not with fear, but with a new energy, possibility. Zarek's tears were a symbol that even the mightiest could be humbled, that even a Dragon King could learn from a small human's heart. Jaren whispered softly to Flare, "We did it, not just for you but for him too. We made him see a new way." The Dragon King rumbled in agreement, his massive head lowering in contemplation. "Yes, a new way," he said. "A way that does not require fear. A way that can bring dragons and humans together, for the first time in centuries." The stables, once a place of strict obedience and trembling, now felt different. The air was lighter, charged with hope and courage. Even the older dragons who had lived under Zarek's harsh rule for decades felt the shift. A human had made the Dragon King cry, had touched something deep and ancient within him, and the palace would never be the same again. Jaren looked up at Zarek, standing tall despite the boy's small size. "Your Majesty, you can change," he said softly. "You can be stronger than fear. You can lead with heart." The Dragon King nodded slowly, his tears glinting in the last rays of sunlight. "Yes, stronger than fear," he rumbled. "And it is because of you, human, that I see it." Flare chirped and flapped his wings happily, nuzzling Jaren one last time before curling at his feet. Jaren smiled, exhausted but filled with pride. Together they had not only survived the Dragon King's test, they had changed him. For the first time in centuries, Zarek felt hope, pride, and a strange softness in his chest. The Dragon King, feared across galaxies, had been humbled by courage and compassion. And the boy who had dared to guide a dragon with patience and heart had become more than a stable boy. He had become a hero in a palace built on fear. From that day nothing would be the same. The Dragon King's tears were a promise that fear would no longer rule, that guidance and compassion had a place even in the harshest empire, and that a small human's heart could change the destiny of dragons and humans alike. The morning sun bathed the floating palace in soft golden light, and the stables felt different than ever before. No longer were they places of fear and trembling. Dragons of all sizes moved freely, some chirping softly, others stretching their wings and practicing maneuvers under the careful guidance of humans. Jaren walked through the stables, feeling a warmth in his chest he had never known. Flare, now confident and strong, followed him, wings flicking happily with each step. The Dragon King, Zarek, had not returned to his throne for judgment or punishment. Instead, he had joined the stables quietly, observing, learning, and even participating. For the first time, humans and dragons shared space as equals, their interactions filled with trust, not terror. Jaren knelt beside Flare, brushing his fingers across the hatchling's scales. "See? Look how far you've come," he whispered. Flare chirped, nudging the boy's hand. Other young dragons hovered nearby, attempting the same maneuvers Flare had learned, guided by their human friends. The palace echoed with laughter, chirps, and the soft beat of wings, a symphony of cooperation that had never been heard before. Zarek moved closer, his massive wings folding neatly behind him. "I have watched centuries of mistakes," he rumbled, his deep voice soft for once. "Dragons punished for failure, humans crushed by fear. And yet, today I see, trust and guidance are stronger than punishment. Heart is stronger than fear." The humans in the stables glanced at the Dragon King in awe. No human had ever spoken so freely in the palace, and now, under Zarek's watchful eyes, they could move with confidence. Jaren stood tall, small but unafraid. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "you've shown us that even the strongest can change. That courage and heart matter as much as strength. We just need to try." The Dragon King nodded slowly, molten gold eyes softening. "You have taught me more than any dragon or human ever could," he said. "Perhaps it is time for a new era, an era where dragons and humans can work together, guide each other, and grow stronger." From that day forward, the palace became a place of learning and training. Dragons were no longer punished for mistakes but guided to understand and improve. Humans learned the ways of the dragons not as slaves but as partners. Jaren led many of the training sessions with Flare by his side, showing that even the smallest beings could inspire great change. Other dragons came closer, once skeptical of the human boy, now observing his guidance with respect. The older dragons who had lived under fear for decades began to see that change was possible. They leaned down to nuzzle the humans, a quiet acceptance of partnership. Jaren smiled as he watched them, understanding that trust was a fragile but powerful force. Zarek himself participated, teaching the younger dragons the art of control and strength while observing humans. His presence, once feared as a symbol of punishment, now represented protection, wisdom, and guidance. Every dragon and human who trained in the palace began to feel the change. They no longer worked out of fear but out of pride, hope, and courage. Flare soared above the training grounds, performing elegant maneuvers with precision. Jaren watched from below, cheering softly. Young dragons followed, their scales shining in the sunlight. Humans guided, praised, and learned alongside them. The palace was alive with a new energy, one that combined wisdom, strength, courage, and heart. Zarek approached Jaren and Flare, massive claws pressing lightly against the stone floor. "You have done more than train a hatchling, small human," he said. "You have changed the very foundation of this palace. You have shown that even the weakest, when guided by heart, can lead to greatness." Jaren looked up at the Dragon King, a small smile on his face. "We only did what felt right. I never imagined it could change so much, Your Majesty." The Dragon King lowered his massive head closer to the boy. "It has changed much," he rumbled. "Not just the dragons but me. I have learned what it means to lead with heart and courage. And because of you, this palace, this empire, can be something greater than fear." Outside, the stars sparkled in the endless void, reflecting the new era within the floating palace. Humans and dragons alike trained side by side, wings and hands moving in harmony. Laughter and roars of excitement echoed through the halls, carrying a sense of unity and purpose. The legends of the Dragon King's wrath were slowly replaced with stories of cooperation, trust, and the courage of one small boy. Jaren knelt beside Flair, whispering, "This is just the beginning. We've done something amazing today. Imagine what we can do tomorrow." Flair chirped softly, nuzzling his side as if promising to stay by his friend's side for every adventure to come. Even the older dragons, once rigid with fear and tradition, now followed Jaren's guidance with interest. They watched him teach, patiently observing, and even learned from the boy. The palace, once a place of terror, became a place of learning, respect, and growth. Zarek watched quietly from above, his massive wings folded, eyes soft but glowing. He had ruled with fear for centuries, but now he saw the power of heart and courage. He had seen a small human boy inspire change in dragons and shift the balance of the entire palace. For the first time he felt pride not for his strength, but for the strength others had shown him. The humans in the stables whispered among themselves, amazed by what had happened. They had feared death and punishment for generations, yet here they stood, respected and trusted. A small boy had changed the course of history, teaching dragons and humans alike that even the smallest heart could inspire greatness. By nightfall, the palace glowed under the twin moons, dragons curled in comfort, humans resting with trust instead of fear. Jaren and Flair perched together on a ledge, overlooking the training grounds. The boy smiled, exhausted but happy. "We did it, Flair. We changed everything." The hatchling chirped softly, nudging his shoulder. "Yes," Jaren whispered. "And tomorrow we'll do even more. Together." Zarek's voice echoed from the hall above, calm and steady. "Let this day mark a new era," he rumbled. "A time when dragons and humans work as partners, not master and servant. When courage, patience, and heart guide us more than fear ever did." Jaren looked up at the massive black-scaled form of the Dragon King, glowing eyes shining softly in the moonlight. "We will, Your Majesty," he said. "We'll make this the best place for dragons and humans alike." And so, a new era began in the floating palace. Dragons learned to trust humans, humans learned to guide dragons, and fear was replaced with respect, courage, and heart. The legend of a small stable boy and his hatchling spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring others to believe that even the smallest being could change the course of empires. Together, Jaren and Flair soared above the palace under the star-filled sky, a symbol of hope and unity. And in the hearts of every dragon and human, a quiet but powerful truth was born. Courage, compassion, and trust could reshape worlds, even those once ruled by fear.